What's up, everybody? My name is Nicholas, but I'm gonna try to go by Suavez because my username is Suavez Chavez. It's a corny ass nickname that I was given by a friend in high school, and I just stuck with it. By no means am I like. Actually, I'm not gonna sell myself short. I do pretty good with the Riz, so Suavez actually kind of fits. I'm not saying I'm like top 10 in the world. I'm not challenging no type of leaderboards, but I'll hold on to it. But anyways, it's not what this video is about, man. What this video is about is a just making a video because I've always wanted to, and I consume. I think we all consume like just a ridiculous amount of content, and so I just thought, hey, why not? Why not make one, right? And second of all, I've been watching The Wire. I know a lot of you are gonna be like, dude, that show came out like 25 years ago. Have you not watched it? Yeah, I was like 4 years old when the show came out, and I've heard so many great things throughout the year. I've actually huge Sopranos fan. Shout out my friend Jelani who put me on. So I'm fully into the Sopranos, and I'm like all in on this, that old school HBO kind of storytelling. I know it's different directors. Their names are escaping me, but regardless, I would say equally brilliant level of storytelling. And I wanted to talk about this one scene in particular from The Wire that was really incredible. And full disclosure, I'm not in a in the perfect analytical mind right now, but I just wanted to document these thoughts. I'm towards the end of season 4, and one of the situations that's kind of happening or progressing, I should say, is this issue with Randy. Lil Randy, man, he's getting called a snitch because of what happened to
Accidentally fucked up right here. I meant to say
the
Lex,
one
not
that told him
Andre.
to go. Anyways, going back to Bodie, Bodie and my boy Poot. Poot is the goat, bro. But they talked to Lil Kevin, which is funny. He's really big Kevin, but Lil Kevin basically tells them, hey, I got taken in, blah blah blah. I had to talk to him, but nothing. I didn't say nothing, bro. It was just they didn't have nothing on me, right? And they convince him, like, nah, Kevin, like, gotta go talk to Marlo, bro. Just check in with the boss, man. Let him know nothing is wrong, right? And that ends up being like the worst thing they could have ever fucking done because he tells, I forget if it was Chris or Marlo. I think it was Marlo. Um, but he talks to him, and he ends up getting disappeared, and which leads to a really really interesting conversation when Poot and Bodie find out about what happened, and they're kind of arguing, and Poot is saying like, "Hey man, it's the game. Like that's what happened with Wallace when we had to do Wallace." And Bodie, I think this scene like really sticks in my mind because throughout the show, they kind of they try to get you into the rules of what's right and what's wrong, and it's really noticeable with kind of the little experiment at the school with with Bunny and with Lil Namon and all them fucking badass kids, and in that particular environment at the school and in that particular special classroom, that's one of the things that Bunny and the researchers are trying to kind of identify, like what is their code of ethics, what makes them act the way they obviously there's a lot of trauma and mental illness, impulsiveness, things like that, but a lot of it it can be attributed to the whole nature versus nurture. And in this case, obviously it's a case of the environment I believe that they grew up in. But they go into these really good, like deep conversations about the code of ethics and snitching, and just the rules. I think there's one scene, if I remember, where they're asked to like work together to write their rules, and it's just a very interesting dynamic because the show, I feel like the writers are really trying to make the viewer understand their perspective. Obviously, it's an amazing show, and it does point out, you know, a lot of great storylines, but this one in particular is interesting because I think it's trying to get the viewer to really understand how it starts from when they're young and how it leads into when they're older. Um, but anyways, I digress. You kind of learn a little bit of what their code of ethics is, and it's a little bit all over the place, but there is somewhat of a code. And this Bodhi and Poot discussion is really interesting because Poot is saying, like, you know, hey, we had to do Wallace, you know, it was the same thing. He was snitching. If Marlo, you know, wanted to do Lil Kev, then it's just the way it is, man. Like, that's the game, that's the business. And Bodhi, who throughout this show has potential, and I think it's fairly evident. He has potential to lead. He's fearless. He knows how to control his corner and his guys. And he's kind of hinted at kind of being the top dog. I forget if it was season 1 or 2. He was talking about Stringer or Avon or something. I'm going to have to go back and fact check myself. But he kind of makes it known like he's going to be the guy one day, right? And what ends up happening is, you know, Avon goes down, and then Bodhi is selling this horrible ass fucking product. He gets involved with the whole East-West beef, I think, like when Prop Joe and Stringer had that deal. So he's kind of always been on the front lines, and he's not in the confidential zone yet. Like, he's never been, you know, a real kind of sergeant or leader. You know, he's been invited to the rooms. I think when Stringer would have his meetings and stuff, you know, he was there. But he's never kind of been tasked with a lot of responsibility, which he's always looked for. He's always kind of been looking for his own game and his own empire to run. And it makes it all the more interesting when Avon goes down and it just becomes chaos. You know, Slim Charles goes to Prop, and then Bodhi's kind of left with no other option but to join Marlo, even though he's kind of was beefing with his youngins for a bit. And I think that scene is so powerful because there's a point where after Poot and Bodhi finish their conversation, the camera pans, and I'll try to put this in if I can. Camera pans, and it's just Bodhi like on the corner by himself, and you just hear in the background there's someone, you know, selling product, and he says, what does he say? I got that Plymouth Rock. Who need that Plymouth Rock? And that was powerful. That blew my mind for a few reasons. One of them, obviously, the meaning of Plymouth Rock, and it's, you know, this area where, you know, English, or I should say, you know, British immigrants first kind of came to America, the Pilgrims, you know. And I think that scene was a realization of a few things, and it kind of ties into the Pilgrims. One, and I think it's the biggest one out of all, I think it's the show foreshadowing, because again, I haven't gotten even into season 5. I'm almost at the end of season 4. But it's the show, I think, foreshadowing that Bodhi's going to make that jump. That he's so disappointed in the status quo. He's so conflicted about what happened to Kev, and just kind of the way his life has gone, and he's been stuck in this in-between, that I think it's the writers making this really neat, intricate connection to the Pilgrims and Bodhi, saying that he's going to break away from everything he's known, from his code of ethics, from his mindset, from everything he's kind of known about the game, and go and start a new life. And I think the camera even pans to show him there by himself on the corner, which again, I think shows that he's about to do this on his own. Whether he's successful or not, this is his time to chase his own empire, which I think is brilliant. Amazing storytelling, amazing scene. It gave me goosebumps. And secondly, I also think it's, I think the biggest point is Bodhi is going to go on his own, and this is the show telling you that. The second point that I think that scene really hammers is that he is in a world that he does not know. So not only is he about to seek his independence, but just like the Pilgrims, he is entering a world where Marlowe does not play by any rules, because it's pretty obvious. It's either going to be Prop Joe, but more likely it's going to be Marlowe and his gang that he's going to have to, either take corners from or go to war with directly. And what happened with Kevin was just a reminder, or kind of a sign to Bodhi that there are no rules anymore. This is a new land. This is Marlowe Stanfield, in the same way that when the Pilgrims landed, they had to, interact with the Native Americans. And again, not to get into the morality of it, but this is a whole new people, a whole new language, a whole new game by which they do not know the rules. And I think that scene is also Bodhi's acknowledgement of his disappointment in what happened to Wallace. His disappointment, but acceptance of what happened to Wallace and him following orders. But with Kevin, he feels that he sent this man to his own death, when he just thought, no, man, you got to tell Marlowe, like, before, you got to tell them before they come asking you, like, it makes you look good. Not knowing that he was sending this man basically to his funeral, or not even funeral, because I think they put him up in a vacant. But again, I think it's Bodhi's acknowledgement, the fact that he's in a world that he does not know. But again, it's the Plymouth Rock. That is his realization that he can go out and create his whole new world. And if he's going to die, he's going to die working to be the man, not just work for Marlowe or for Stringer or for Avon, anybody else. Bodhi is his own fucking man. So, yeah, The Wire is extremely powerful. I don't got to tell the people that are going to view this. I mean, you guys already know the history of the show and how incredible the writing is, the depth of the characters. Like, right now, I'm just so blown away by the scene with Michael and his stepdad, and him going to Marlowe, and just all of the dialogue that's not spoken, that's not said outright, but you can understand where everything is coming from. That is a brilliant storytelling, with Michael, with this situation, with Bodhi, Randy trying to get himself out of the pickle, and obviously Mayor Carcetti right now trying to figure out how to juggle Burrell and Rawls, and maybe thinking about putting Daniels in up at the top. So very great show. I might have rambled a little bit, so I apologize, but shout out the creators of The Wire and the writing team, everyone who's involved, because they've really written such a intricate, like, complex story that is incredible. So shout out to them, and I'm gonna follow up, because again, this is just my theory about Bodhi. So I don't even know if it comes true. I don't know if he, attempts to find his own way, but I'm fairly certain he does, and I'll make a follow up when that happens. But again, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.